Okay, this is chapter 5. We're beginning Nechemiah, chapter 5, and the wall has been finished around Jerusalem. The people are secure in the city, the walled city of Jerusalem. And now Nechemiah has remained in Jerusalem for the time being, and we find that there's a problem. There are many problems, and Nechemiah is going to address different problems that exist among the Jewish community. So the first thing that we find here is that the people, let me get these glasses, I got so many glasses here. That we find that what's happening in the city, and there was instability within the city that the people were complaining about. There was no support system within the city and within the Jewish community of charity, of tzedakah, of charitable funding for the large families who were poor. And there was one group of people who are complaining to Nechemiah, and they say that they have to buy food now that the city is safe. We now have to go back to our work, because remember, they all stopped working. No, most of the people who we read about, it says their names, they came, they built, they fixed the wall, they repaired the wall, they built the wall, they had left their jobs. Now maybe there were some servants who were in the fields doing the field work, or the servants were at the wall and the masters were in the fields, we don't know. But now people have to get back to living in a safe community and safer environment, and now they have to provide food. They've come to a point where they have to buy food, and they are having large families. They are reproducing. They are having many children, and their complaint to Nechemiah is, what are we going to do? We don't have the money. So it says in the first pasuk, now the outcry of these people, of the people and their wives, so it's the adults are concerned, their Jewish brethren, was great. Okay, some said, we and our sons and daughters are numerous, and we must buy grain to eat and remain alive. So they saying to Nechemiah that they have to go out and buy food, but we don't have money to buy food, and our families are big. And others, pasuk 3, others said, we must offer our fields and our vineyards and our homes as security to buy grain in the famine. What does that mean? They have to mortgage their property, their homes, their fields, their vineyards, in order to get money. So now they have money to buy food, but now they have to pay back the mortgage to whoever lent them the money. And it wasn't First City Bank who gave them a loan. It was their fellow Jews. So it says in 4, still others said, we borrowed money against our fields and vineyards for the king's taxes. In other words, we had money, enough money, just barely enough to buy our food, but now we didn't have enough money to pay the king's taxes. Don't forget, Everybody was still paying taxes to the king in Persia. We're living under the Persian Empire. So they didn't have money for the king's taxes. Now in 5, it says, now our flesh is like the flesh of our brothers, and our sons like theirs, yet we must press our sons and daughters into servitude, with some of our daughters already pressed into servitude, and we are powerless. In other words, this situation of having no money is causing us to say to ourselves, the only way that we can provide for our families, other than selling our property or mortgaging it, is to sell our children as slaves, servitude, or to marry them off in order to have less mouths to feed. So some are saying, we've already done this. We've already had to send our daughters into servitude. And we've already had to do this, even though we know that it's against halacha. It's a Torah prohibition. So what are the people talking about here? They're saying to Nechemiah that they do not want to have to sell their children into servitude, into slavery, in order to put food on the table. And can he help the people? So, and it's continuing, and our fields and our vineyards are given to others. In other words, we don't even have our own vineyards and our fields anymore. So not only do we have no more money, we have to sell our children into servitude, but we don't even have a way of making money because there's nothing left for us. We owe debt, we have debts. So in verse 6, it says, I was angered when I heard their outcry and in these matters. I followed my heart's advice, and I confronted the aristocrats and the nobles, saying to them, he called everybody together, and he knew that this was just plain flat out wrong. And that's why he says he follows his heart, and he says to them, you are money lenders to your brothers. You can't do that. You can't be money lenders to your brothers. He says, I also gathered a large crowd around them, another crowd of the Jewish community, and I said to them, we ransomed according to our means our brothers, the Jews, who were sold to Gentiles. Now you too will sell your brothers to be sold to us? What is he saying here? Does anyone know? Why is he referring to selling his brethren?
The story of Joseph.
Why Joseph?
No, not really. They didn't sell him to be a slave. They just wanted to get rid of him. But what's being said here is that Nechemiah asks if the nobles are demanding those loans. He wants to know whether they are asking for the money back in payment for whatever the borrowers need to pay. And Nechemiah shames them in public, saying, is this a possibility he's saying that you, the Jewish people in Yerushalayim, in Yehuda, the returnees have now become holding mortgages and collateral from these people. He's publicly shaming them. That's why he says he gathers another group around the aristocrats and the nobles. He wants the people to hear him shame these people. And he says to them, he goes on, public shame can go a long way. And so Nechemiah knows this, and he said, that's why he has all the people gathered around the nobles, and he says to them, do you know in other times, Jews were sold to other nations, and we had to buy those Jews back because they are our brethren. He says, you Jews, you're going to take your brethren's children as slaves, and you are going to eventually, when you have no need for them anymore, sell them to other nations as slaves, and you're going to create a Jewish slave market? Are you out of your mind? He wants to know, is this what your plans are? How can you do this? He is just like beyond comprehension of what these people are doing. So he said, yes. Someone
They were united by Shmuel and was beginning Malachim when they wanted the king.
You're right. There is a pasuk about in Shmuel that talks about this, and that's a very good point. I wasn't going to go into a Shmuel Hanavi, but thank you for bringing that up. You're right. You're very right. Thank you. This is a very serious thing that's going on in the Jewish community, and so Nechemiah wants an answer from these people, and he's making sure they understand what they're doing is terrible, and he's saying our enemies will see this with such disgust for us that we are making our brethren's children as slaves. They're going to say, where's the God of Israel? These people are supposed to be so involved in community and charity and looking out for their neighbors and the poor and the needy and the widow and the orphan. What's going on? The nations understood what the Jews were all about, but the Jews were not understanding what they should be about. So Nechemiah embarrassed these people as to the situation that they have brought about. And let's continue reading the text. Linda, you want to read? Do you have a text in front of you?
Yes, I do. What?
Verse 9.
Okay, got it. Then I said, the king you are doing,
No,
the thing you are doing is not good.
all right, Linda, we can't.
Surely you should walk with the fear of our God because of the scorn in their eyes.
All right, Linda, stop. Stop, Linda. You're breaking up. It's very hard to hear anything that you're reading. So I think it's your computer. So we're gonna go on to someone. All right. Okay. Can you read it?
Starting with 9.
9.
Yeah, I got it right here. So I said, the thing you are doing is not good. It is not so that you will go with the fear of our God because of the reproach of the nations, our enemies. I too and my brothers and my servants have lent them money and corn. Let us now relinquish this loan. As of today, give them back their fields, vineyard, olive trees, and houses, and the 100 silver pieces, and the corn, the wine, and the oil that you lent them.
Okay, go ahead.
And they said, we shall return, and we shall not demand of them. So shall we do as you say.
Okay,
And
okay, that's it, okay.
Stop there.
Yeah, all right, so at verse 9, we learn that Nehemiah says to them that what you're doing is not good, and better that you walk with the fear of God. Clearly, he's referring to them, you don't know the rules about servitude that are in the Torah about Eved Ivri. Eved Ivri is about Jewish slaves, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. We're going to read what it says in the Torah, but what Nehemiah is saying to them is that it's better that you fear God because of this insult of the nations who are our enemies, and that you should do the right thing. So let's stop for a moment here. And now let's read, we're going to go to Shemot, Mishpatim. And in Mishpatim, we're going to learn the laws of slavery. Okay.
What chapter is that?
Now, in Shemot, Exodus. There, we're going to, can you see it? Chapter 21, Shemot, and it's called Mishpatim. That's the name of the Parsha. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Zamira, can you read please?
Sure, I'll be glad to. Thank you. And these are the ordinances that you shall set before them. Should you buy a Hebrew slave, he shall work for 6 years. And in the 7th year, he shall go out to freedom without charge. If he comes in alone, he shall go out alone. If he's a married man, his wife shall go out with him. If his master gives him a wife and she bears him sons or daughters, the woman and her children shall belong to her master, and he shall go out alone. I don't like that one. But if the slave says, I love my master, my wife, and my children, I will not go free. His master shall bring him to the judges, and he shall bring him to the door or to the doorpost, and his master shall bore his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. Now, if a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free. If she is displeasing.
Okay, did you hear that? And this is exactly what was said in Nehemiah. We've already sent our daughters to servitude. What does it say again? Let's
If a man sells his daughter as a maidservant, she shall not go free as the slaves go free.
So you understand, this is a lifelong commitment that these people, if they sell their daughters to somebody else, then this is serious business.
Wow.
Now, what some of them could do is they may make a match where they say, I'm going to give you my daughter for your son to marry when they get old enough to marry. And so she becomes part of the household and then marries the son. Now I don't believe she's considered a slave as a result of that shidduch that they're making between the two of them, but it means that the person who's taking her in has an extra pair of hands, but to work, but it means they also have an extra mouth to feed until there's a marriage.
So why such discrimination against women and not men?
I
Right.
don't,
That's another story, right, Rhonda? Not for today.
We'll save that till we get to women's lib.
yeah, I'm not even going.
Okay.
This was how it went
That's
down.
how it was. Okay.
Okay, all right. Go ahead, 8.
If she is displeasing to her master who did not designate her for himself, then he shall enable her to be redeemed. He shall not rule over her to sell her to another person when he betrays her.
In other words, what is that saying? If she is displeasing to her master, who did not designate her for himself, meaning for himself to either marry,
marry.
or for his son to marry, then he shall enable her
To be redeemed.
to be redeemed, or he shall not rule over her to sell to others. He has to keep her. Okay.
When he betrays her.
So redeemed means
well,
by
when
her
he-
family
when
or
he-
some other Jewish family?
What?
Redeemed means back to her family? Like her parents kind of thing,
I
redeemed?
think so, yes, but I think that's true, but if he doesn't want to get rid of her and he takes another a woman as his wife, then he's
10.
betrayed the agreement that she should be his wife.
I see.
Okay, go ahead.
If he designates her for his son, he shall deal with her according to the law of the daughters of Israel. If he takes another wife for himself, he shall not diminish her sustenance, her clothing, or her marital relations.
So in
And if
other
he-
words, he has to treat her as if, she is just as special as the next wife.
Right.
Okay.
And if he does not do these 3 things for her, she shall go free without charge, without payment of money. One who strikes a man so that he dies,
Okay, that's it.
that's something else.
Okay. So do you hear what's going on here in the Torah? This is Torah law. This is Torah Sinai. It's from Sinai, and it's not, just some made up stuff. This is the laws of the Torah. And so consequently, when Nechemiah hears about what's going on, he is livid. He's in shock and he's livid. And he clearly believes that these people are doing it for 2 reasons. One is greed, and the other is they don't know Torah. They just don't know the Torah. So he is now he's now saying to the people, and we go back to the text and we see that what he's going to say to them. And let's go back to verse 10. I, my brothers and my servants also lent them money, meaning the poor. I lent the poor people money and grain, and we will now relinquish this debt. I too am going to do exactly what I'm telling you to do. I'm not going to have anybody pay me back. I'm not going to have anybody owe me money, and neither will any of my servants or my brothers, meaning whoever is living in the house with him. He's not going to charge them anymore. And then he says in 11, hold on, let me go to 11. Then he says, restore to these people, restore to them now, give them back now, these people, this very day, their fields, their vineyards, their olive orchards, and their homes, and the hundreds in silver, grain, wine, and oil, which you hold against them. In other words, whatever you're taking as collateral or whatever you're taking as payment on their or as a mortgage, whether it's you're getting oil, you're getting wine, you're getting grain, whatever you're getting from these people, including money, you make sure you give it back 100%. Don't give them back just what's today due to them today. You give them back everything. So Nehemiah's approaches the okay, we're going to go to 11. No, the end of 11. And it says hundreds in silver. It means don't give them back what's due just this month. They've paid you for months and months and months, and that's hundreds. That's all the money. Give them all the money back so that they can live. So Nechemiah sets the example. He tells the people what they have to do. And what do the people say in 12? What do they say?
We shall return it all.
We shall restore and make no demands of them, and we shall do as you say. Oh boy, he really shamed them, right? This Nehemiah. So what's the next thing we hear? Continue then?
The Kohanim.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then I summoned the Kohanim and I administered an oath upon them to act in accordance with this matter.
Okay.
I also shook the hem of my garment and said, so may God shake out from his home and from his toil any man who does not fulfill this matter.
Okay, stop. Okay, what happened here? Nehemiah was so intent that these people keep their word. He was so involved in this whole procedure that he insisted that they call the Kohanim, the priests, to administer an oath. He wants them to swear an oath that they're going to do this, not just say, have a handshake and say Shalom Al Yisroel and then go back to their old ways of collecting the mortgage payment. He wanted them to be so shamed that the Kohanim come in front of all the people and they make an oath and they swear that they are going to uphold all that Nehemiah has said, and that they will do everything that they have agreed upon. So, let's see. So the Kohanim, when they are brought in to administer an oath, are brought in to make the transaction or whatever it is a holy event. In other words, this is just not business. This is business in the eyes of God.
Right.
And it was very important. This was not anything that was to be fooled around with or to be changed or to be altered after they had taken the oath. So he wanted to make sure that people wouldn't renege on their promises. And then he said, then in Pasuk 13, not only does he make sure the Kohanim comes in to administer the oath, but he does something, and I'm going to ask you to listen carefully, and you tell me what this sounds like, okay? Then, 13, I also shook the corner of my garment and said, so may God shake any man failing to fulfill this matter. away from his home and his toil, and so may he remain shaken and empty. Does this remind you of anything?
It's like, what's his name again?
On
Shababa
Rosh Hashanah,
What?
on
Samaria.
Rosh Hashanah, when we empty our sins into the water.
Oh,
It's also,
yes, yes.
I forgot.
Say that again, what?
On Rosh Hashanah.
What do we do?
Tashlich,
Tashlich, tashlich.
Tashlich.
What do we do?
empty our pockets.
We empty our pockets, shake out the,
Sins, the crumbs.
okay, then we shake out the sins for which we are guilty of, so that it will not be part of our lives anymore. So this is exactly what Nechemiah is doing. He says, he's taking and he's shaking out the corner of his garment, and he's saying to the people, he's making like a bracha here, a prayer. So may God shake any man failing to fulfill this matter away from his home. And he's saying, if he doesn't fulfill this matter, God, and he doesn't keep to this oath, then God should, like I'm shaking my garment, he should be shaken away from his home and his family and his work. And so may he be remain shaken and empty, and he should not be blessed with any kind of prosperity or anything good because he has not fulfilled this oath. This was serious. This was big time serious for Nechemiah. So do you understand this was like a act of tashlich on Rosh Hashanah, where we understand how we get rid of our sins. These were the sins of the people by asking exorbitant amounts of interest and monies from our brethren. And we see that there was no kind of tzedakah organizations in place back then. They hadn't created any kind of social systems where everyone was taken care of. So this was a prayer to God for the mitzvah that they were performing. Okay, any questions? All right, so now let's go.
Oh, Rhonda, I do
Yes.
have a question. All
Yeah.
of this sounds like that whenever Nechemiah spoke, that the people really, really respected him and that there wasn't any divisiveness going on. Is there anything that would, give a different point of view of that? Or did the people really, really, I mean, it sounds like when he said, let's build the walls, they built the walls. Everybody cooperated. You don't often hear of somebody where there's not somebody who's, saying something against them, that he really did have their respect.
Right. So let's understand a couple things. First of all, Nechemiah comes as an emissary of the king. So right away, he's got a position of power. He comes as a governor. He's considered a governor of the area. So the people aren't going to mess with him, whether he's Jewish or not. He's a governor and he represents the king. The second thing is he's a Jewish governor and he knows Torah, and they don't know a lot of Torah. So he's going to make sure that they understand what they're doing in many instances are wrong. He felt it was wrong that they didn't build the wall prior to when he came. That's why he even made the wall worse. We read how he broke down to make it even worse. So he seems to be a very clever fellow. And he seems to have a great understanding of these Jewish people here, you know, and how to get their attention. You know, he gets their attention with the wall. He gets their attention now by shaming them. He has no problem in shaming them. And he now, you know, is serious about turning this nation around.
He had
Okay.
lots of charisma.
Well,
Obviously,
either he had charisma or people were afraid of him. Who knows what, you know, let's hope it was charisma, that he was a really likable guy. You know, he was heartfelt in what he did. Okay, so
Okay.
let's go now to Pasuk 14. Xenia, you want to, Cynthia, you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, can you read Pasuk 14 and continue?
Sure. Moreover, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Yehudah, from the 20th year even to the 32nd year of Artaxerxes the king, that is 12 years, I and my brethren have not eaten the bread of the governor. But the former governors who had been before me laid burdens upon the people and had taken of them for bread and wine, besides 40 shekels of silver. Even their servants bore rule over the people. But I did not do so because of the fear of God. For I also continued in the work of this wall, nor did we buy any land, and all my servants were gathered there to work. Moreover, there were at my table 150 of the Jews and the rulers, besides those who came to us from among the nations who were round about us. Now that which was prepared for one day was 1 ox and 6 choice sheep. Also fowls were prepared for me, and once in 10 days store of all sorts of wine. Yet for all this I did not demand the bread of the governor, because bondage was heavy upon this people. Remember me, my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people.
Okay. What's going on here? What's he saying?
No.
What?
No. He's saying, no. I went without. Why are you guys complaining?
Okay. Okay.
What's the matter with you?
Okay. All right. He's saying, in addition to that, in Pasuk, let's see, 14. Let's see here. Let's find it. He says that he's there. He says, okay, so now the people have all said, the entire congregation had answered amen to the fact that he shook out his pockets, and they made an oath, and they praised Hashem. We didn't read this, I'm sorry. And praised Hashem, and the people carried out the matter. In other words, they went on and they carried out the oath, and they did what they were supposed to. Now in 14, it says, moreover, from the day he was appointed governor until in the land of Judah, from the 20th until the 32nd year of the king's reign. So during the 12 years that he has been there so far, he's been there a long time now. He's been there 12 years. He says, my brothers, and that's the people living in his house, his family, not his family, but his brothers, and his servants. He's called. He did not eat of the governor's stipend or the governor's food since he has arrived. What does that mean? That he was allotted, because he was the governor, he was allotted a certain amount of money and food to take from the people that they had to pay the governor
But they
from
didn't
their
take it.
property. But what he did is he didn't take it. He did not take anything from the people since he arrived. And he seems like he had his own provisions somehow. He came sort of, he couldn't have come as a poor man because he's being sent by the king. So he has some provisions to make his life comfortable and those who live in his household. And he's paid, for the work that people have done for him. But he was exhibiting humility and setting an example here of I'm not going to take from the people. So then it says, but the earlier governors who preceded me burdened the people, and they took from the people. They took their wine and their bread, in addition to 40 silver shekels. In other words, there was a tax that the other governors before him collected. And he says, I, however, I haven't done that for the fear of God, because it wasn't the right thing to do to my brethren, because I believe in God and I believe in the laws of the Torah. And then in 16, he says, let's see, in 16, he says, I also sustained the work of this wall, and we did not buy fields, or all of my servants were gathered around my table. They worked at the wall. And he's telling us his situation, that he didn't go out and use the tax money for his own gain to buy fields so that he could make a livelihood. He made sure that he could provide for his servants, and that he was a willing and able participant in the building of the wall, and now in the future of the Jewish community. And he says, Jews and nobles, they gathered, let's see, wait a minute. We did not take any fields, and my servants were gathered at the table at work. Okay, Jews and nobles, 150 men. He had 150 men, in addition to those who came to us from surrounding nations, were at my table. So he had 150 people at his table every day, plus those who came to him from the nations, meaning converts or people looking to convert. So he had a huge amount of people at his table that he was feeding on his own. And so he says, and now he's elaborating, and we're not sure who he's talking to here, but he says 1 day's fare, another one was, and he tells about the ox, the sheep, the 6 sheep, and the fowl that were prepared for Nechemiah, plus wine enough for 10 days. In other words, the people around his table not only ate a lot, but they drank more wine than could be consumed in 10 days. And he's saying that's a lot of stuff, I had to put out of my own pocket all this stuff. And despite this, he says, I did not request the governor's stipend. He didn't ask for the governor's money, for the labor weighed heavily on these people. In other words, it would, if I had asked for the money, the governor's money that I was due, it would have been from you, the Jewish people, who had to pay for this. But I didn't ask for that. And I did this happily for these people who are around the table. Now, the interesting thing here is the last sentence, and I want you to listen to this. Up until now, the last, 4 pasukim, Nehemiah is telling us all the things that he has provided, what he has done. And then he's saying in Pasuk 19, the last Pasuk of the chapter, remember in my favor, my God, all that I did for this people. What do you think? What's he saying?
Why does it need to say that? God knows what's been going on.
Okay,
Right.
He wants something extra.
what do you think he wants?
Well, I was reading the commentaries,
Okay,
and they said that because he asked for that, they took his name out and they called it the Book of Ezra.
okay, that's Midrash. Okay.
Midrash.
But you can believe that. I'm not gonna, that's not a known fact,
Okay.
okay? What else what do you think is going on here?
Maybe he's
Kind of
exaggerating.
reminds me of when he went back and he told the Samaritans and everybody that was going to attack them at the wall that you will not be remembered. What you do will be, you'll be like you didn't exist. And it's almost like he doesn't want that to happen to him.
Mhm. Okay, okay.
And I can't understand why,
Mhm.
because he's not the type of person that would think it might happen to him.
Well, that is what
We
I was,
don't know.
that's what I was looking for you to say. He didn't seem like the type of person
Right.
who would need to say something like that. Okay. So anyone else have something to say about this?
No, it's been answered.
Well, a partial answer. All right, here's something that I think is very interesting. We can read this in several ways. We can read it as, okay, God, here's the scoop. I have been feeding 150 strapping young men around my table every day,
Every night.
and, you know, and not taking anything from anybody and doing the best I can with my under the circumstances. And what I'd like you to do is, because I did this Yirei Shamayim, in the fear of God, in the belief in God, that I would like you to remember me for good. I'd like you to remember me, because that I've done my best. I've really tried hard to do my best. Or and in some ways that's not so terrible to say to God, you know, when I think about it, I've done my best. I'm coming to you, God. I have so much ahead of me to do. I need your help and support. So please remember me down here as I do your work. And that's a fair request. That's a fair assessment, and that's a fair request.
It is.
Or we could look at it as Eza chutzpah. I'm now let's change the tone of how he could have said, you know, God,
Right.
I'm a gunsa knocker here. I'm a big mocker. I'm feeding 150 people at my table and others. And boy, can they eat me at a house and home and drink me under the table.
Yeah, how about all that wine every 10
And
days?
you know,
or something?
God, it hasn't been easy, because I haven't taken one bit. Look what a tzaddik I am. Look what a good person I am, that I haven't taken one thing from these people. And yet I am asking you to remember me for good. So in other words, you could say, he's coming to Hashem with a cheshbon. He's coming with an invoice. And he's saying, you know, God, here's my bill of all the things I've done for you. Now, please remember me for good.
That sounds so
what-
very Jewish.
Huh?
That sounds so Jewish.
Sounds very Jewish.
Yeah.
Um,
But we ask Hashem, He gives us, and then we ask for more.
But what did we learn? I always learned that the highest form of tzedakah is anonymous.
okay.
That when people give and it's anonymous and they don't take credit or anything, it's the highest form of tzedakah.
Right.
And to me, this whole sentence goes against that.
Okay. Now, okay. So Cynthia says this is very Jewish, and you're saying that you learned this is not. I think that it's very important that we come away from this learning that humility is the key for all that we do. Now, if I don't know whether any of us recall, but on Slichot, before Rosh Hashanah, the first prayer that we read from is from the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verse 7. And it says, at Slichot, we reread, "To you, God, is righteousness, to us is shamefacedness." In other words, to you, God is everything. You have everything, God, and to you, we give you everything that we can possibly give to you. But we are like an empty vessel, full of shame and nothingness. And that is how Daniel saw himself when he prayed to God. He saw himself as the person who had to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the Jewish people acting this way. I'm sorry that the people don't praise your name and ask you to come, to go back home more when they should. And so what happens here is that we have two ways of looking at an approach to Hashem. One is that God is here and he's here's my bill. I'm going to give you my cheshbon and my invoice. I'm a good person. So can you reward me for doing what I have done? I know that I haven't always done everything as good as I could, but here's the good stuff. Now, God can say to you, you think you've done good stuff? Let me give you the cheshbon that I have for you and tell you what I've done, but I haven't asked anything in return except your righteousness. So, it could be, you think you've got a bill? Wait till you see the length of my bill. So that's one way of thinking, well, and it's not, I don't think that's the way all of us really want to approach God. We really want to approach God in the second way, with humility, with like a child coming to his father, our king, who does all this for us. We are grateful. We do our best in this world to make you proud of us, dear Father in heaven, and that we don't have an invoice relationship with you. So I think that coming out of this situation about tzedakah and the formation of the oath between God and between the people and each other and the Jewish community, as they took an oath to God and swore that they would uphold it, I think that it's very telling for us how we should approach our relationship with God. And it's a good lesson coming out of this chapter that we should approach God with humility, we should approach God with gratefulness, and we should approach God with thankfulness, and that we should always care for our fellow Jews no matter where they are.
That is very true, but I still don't feel that we should toot our own horn when we tell God what we do. He knows.
Okay.
True enough.
Okay, and that's what I believe the lesson
Yeah.
is,
okay.
and that's what I think we've learned coming out of this chapter, is that the people did wrong. They admitted it. They were willing to ask for forgiveness, and they were actually there to make it right.
That's the
And-
people.
Okay, and then Nechemiah, recounts what he's done in order for us to know what kind of person he is, and that he too is part of this group who is asking God for remembrance for good, because he was also part of taking that oath, and he hopes to be heard by God. So I think that what we instead of taking away from this an arrogance, we should take away a humility, and we should make sure that we act as humble Jews.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay?
Rhonda.
So